I gotta say, if YouTube has any issue with me using the word dead over and over and over again, I could be a problem with this video. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Lombardi Time Brews. I'm your host, John Delray. Today, taking a look at the Packers salary cap situation. Now, it is a lot friendlier than it's been in previous years. There's no doubt about that. But they are still paying some bills from pushing so much money forward over the last couple of years. And the Packers do need to push a couple more, release a couple guys, do something to get some, operating money, but also Brian Gutekunst maybe overselling his hand a little bit, talking about how the Packers are not going to shy away from adding impact players this offseason. Well, if they're going to do that, they definitely got to open up some room. So we're going to talk about the current cap situation, who's taking up all of their cap. We're going to talk about how they can get cap space and what that means for current players. So before diving in, just one super quick note. It's very, very rare. I haven't done it for a long time where I talk about subscriber numbers or anything like that on this channel. But please, if you could do me a favor, if you like being around here, hit the subscribe button. We're so freaking close to 1,500 subs. I don't like to beg for it, but look, we're so close. It's a big milestone. We broke the record for it. So thanks. All right, moving on. How can the Packers open up cap space? Just from a 30,000 foot view, there's a number of different ways, right? One, trade or cut a guy. Yeah, makes sense, right? Dude no longer on team. That opens up money for other dudes. Yeah, makes sense. Number two, a player can just straight up take a pay cut. Incredibly rare. Yeah, I know. But nonetheless, it does happen. Look at Aaron Jones last year. Number three, they can extend a player. Someone like Kenny Clark, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, may have a very large cap number in the last year of a contract. Well, if they were to extend him, they can fudge a lot more numbers, finagle a lot more stuff into the future. Certainly a possibility. Another option would be simple restructures. Generally, what that means is a team takes a portion of a salary, guarantees it, but in guaranteeing it, they are then allowed to spread out the guarantee over future years. It doesn't really change when the player gets paid, so they don't really care. And not only that, but a player, it's not up to them whether a simple restructure is performed. It's at the will of the Packers. So there's no agreement that needs to take place. That would be the next option, void year restructures. So in a void year restructure, this is an extended, more drastic type of restructure. It's much the same thing in principle. You're going to take a portion of a base salary, guarantee it, spread it out. But this time, the spreading out goes into false years to the contract in order to extend out the bonuses even further. It does, however, get complicated from a player standpoint because the players have to agree to this. There's rules on how many years you can add per the original contract length. It can complicate an extension or the player re-signing. So there are a lot of complications to void year contract extensions, unlike simple restructures. And one of the things that I would say too is like simple restructures, they've been around for a long time. Packers used to employ a lot of these. Void year restructures really came into play around COVID times when the NFL had a very unexpected small financial year and teams are really scrambling on how to get creative and create room. We saw that be really the advent of void years. The Packers certainly dipped their toe in there as well. And then the last thing, in regards to void years, a way you can open up space is to re-sign a void year player, a guy who's slated to be off of your team, but re-sign him and then bring down his number. For instance, Darnell Savage, the first player we're going to talk about, he's a pending free agent. And actually, he's got the 10th highest cap number on the 2024 cap. He's not even due to play football for him, and he's got the 10th highest cap number at $5.456 million. If the Packers were to re-sign him, now this is just hypothetically, but let's say if they were to re-sign him, then they could take that $5.4 million in dead money that he's got, spread it out over the new duration of the contract or even new void years. And let's say hypothetically they retain him at a base of like $2 million with the $2 million signing bonus. Because then they're spreading out the dead stuff that he's going to have on this year, they can drag it down and take his cap number from 5.4 to theoretically something like the high threes. So you've gotten a guy on your team while simultaneously opening up cap room. That option was present for them last year with several different players, including Adrian Amos. Of course, the Packers opted not to do it, but we've seen them do it before, and there is possibility here in terms of Darnell Savage, in terms of Yash, Keyshawn Nixon. Yeah, the possibilities are there, but the financial compensation may not be as great in terms of the benefit to the Packers. So now I'm going to say too, that it saves about $1.5 million. It's ish. And that word ish really takes us to the next topic. When talking salary cap, there is a fair amount of approximation that goes into this. Info can be different between different sources because realistically only the NFL, the NFLPA, the players themselves, and the teams have the exact details at all times. For instance, Spot Track and Over the Cap are considered really league-wide to be the two resources when it comes to financials. Well, right now, if you go look up the Packer page, they're different. Yeah. Spot Track says that the Green Bay Packers actually have a tiny little bit of cap space available right now. Over the Cap says that they're over the cap by about $3 million. And one of the discrepancies comes into play with Over the Cap got the memo that Bo Melton and Benny Sapp have contracts still in place for next year, that when they were signed to the 53, it included the next year. Spot Track didn't get that memo. So as of right now, they're on their list of free agents. So please bear that in mind as we really get into the nitty-gritty of these numbers, that a lot of this is approximation. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's take a look at the Packers' exact situation. So either they're like $500,000 of cap space or they're $3 million over the cap. Regardless, they need money. And their cap problems are really concentrated in the top 10 of the roster. Like I mentioned, Savage is 10th on the team with a cap hit of only $5.4 million. The rest of the top 10 would be as follows. David Bakhtiari, number one, with a $40 million cap hit. $40 million cap hit for David Bakhtiari. Next up, Kenny Clark with a cap hit next year of 27.49. Jay Alexander's after that, 23.98. Aaron Jones next on the list at 17. Preston Smith at 16.5. Rashawn Gary, 15.9. Elton Jenkins, 14.4. Devondre Campbell, 14.2. Jordan Love, 12.7. And yeah, his number's definitely going to change with his new contract extension. So there you have it. It's a very, very top-heavy financial roster. And you can tell, especially with those three names up there, with Bakhtiari, Clark, and Jair, that's a lot of money wrapped up in just three individuals. As an example of just how top-heavy they are, there are only 11 players on this team out of the 53-man roster, 11 dudes, that if they were to be cut today, the Packers would get cap room of at least $1 million. Just 11 dudes who that actually qualifies for. And I'm not talking post-June 1. I'm just saying right now, if they were to cut them, they'd get over $1 million in cap room. That's it. 11 dudes. 5 of which sit in the top 10 that I just listed off. The others, Josh Myers, Royce Newman, TJ Slayton, Matt Orzik, Isaiah McDuffie, and Zane Anderson. I feel really secure that at least 3 of them are guaranteedly coming back on the roster. So in terms of just outright releasing guys for money, it's really not a good year for that. They have such limited guys making high-value dollars that can actually be cut without consequence. And even if you were to make it a post-June 1 designation for those releases, you're really only adding in a couple guys like Tucker Kraft and Sean Ryan. And yeah, those guys are probably safe. So again, options for outright cutting guys, not good. So the Packers have to look at other options. And the big one is most definitely this dude, David Bakhtiari. Big Dave is entering the final year of his contract. And as I mentioned, he's got a staggering cap number of about $40 million next year. If the knee is healthy, there is a possibility that they could work out an extension. It's at least possible. That would help his number for sure. They could add void years to his contract for the first time. In spite of the Packers doing that with so many other players, they've never done it with David Bakhtiari. And that could be because they haven't wanted to, given his uncertain medical situation. It could be because he never agreed to it. We don't know. Regardless, they've never done it. If they were to do it, they could drag his cap number down from 40 to about 30, saving 10 now, and then adding a few $1 million in dead cap every year for 3 to 4 years thereafter. Of course, there's also an option where David Bakhtiari takes a pay cut, though I doubt, given his past comments about how player windows are short and he and everyone should be fighting for every dollar they possibly can get, I kind of doubt he's the pay cut type. So then you're left with trading or releasing him. In this particular case, whether they do it after June 1 or before, it makes absolutely no difference. Cutting him now would leave 19 million of the 40 million on the cap, but would open $21 million in cap space. A trade would result in the exact same thing. But I know trading Dave Bakhtiari is a hot topic. Just keep in mind, if they do trade him, he'd have to pass another team's physical, which very well could be an insurmountable challenge. Without a pay cut, restructuring would result in a probable gain of about $10 million. So just keep that in mind. Cutting ties with him gets about 21. With Dave, look, frankly, I wouldn't be shocked to see this go any which way. Like, nothing is going to surprise me about this situation. Release? Yeah, I get it. They want 21 million in cap space. Maybe they're not sure that the knee can hold up, so you just cut him. 20 million cap space. Absolutely. Keep him around. Totally. I get it. You're hoping David Bakhtiari is going to be healthy, that he can be the great left tackle for you again, because, again, anytime he's played, he still has been one of the left tackles in football. It's just been that whole playing thing. Even restructuring. Let's say they get him to do void years for the first time. Yeah. Now suddenly you're going to keep David Bakhtiari around for one more year at about 30 million instead of 40 million to be insurance with Rasheed Walker. Like, yeah, okay, that can make sense too. But the thing is, no matter which avenue they pick, you can justify every one of them, no matter what. That knee has to be healthy. Next up, let's take a look at Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark is still somehow only 28 years old, and he's entering the final year of his contract. Because of past restructures, he already has a dead cap number over 3 void years after his contract expires. And the thing is, with his cap numbers already, like the dead cap, they're not small. He's got a dead cap number of $13.7 million in 2025, 8.2 2026, and 2.7 in 2027. We all know that they're not just going to release or trade Kenny Clark. He's still a very valuable part of the defense, especially as they switch to a new defense. So options here do include a restructure. The easiest one just being a simple restructure that would open about 12 million in cap room. But again, you do that and you're just increasing the dead cap numbers in the future, which frankly is kind of terrifying. And this is one contract where frankly the Packers are just not in a good spot. You have a 28-year-old player, one of the better ones in the league at his position, entering the final year of his deal. And you're sitting in this major quandary of, even though he's really good at his position, he makes too much freaking money. So we got to do something. None of the options are particularly great. So that's why the Packers could very well soon be offering Kenny Clark the elusive third contract in Green Bay. And who knows what that may look like. You can assume, even if they do get an extension done with him, that it could drag the number down by 10, maybe 12 million, depending on how they structure it. So those are realistically the options here for Kenny Clark. Either do a restructure, get yourself 10, 12 million. Do an extension, get yourself maybe 10 to 13 million. Regardless, something is going to happen with Kenny Clark because of the way that this contract has already been pushed forward, and it's going to gain them about 8 to 13 million in cap relief. Since we're on the topic of restructures, there are a few players that are almost certainly going to be getting restructures. And again, these are not restructures, unless they're talking void years, that players have to agree to. It's just sheerly financial, moving the chairs around the Titanic type deal from the Packers. And those players would be Jair Alexander, Rashawn Gary, and Elton Jenkins. Again, another 3 players in the top 10. If the Packers do restructure each one of them, and again, all these players are relatively new in their extensions. Keep that in mind. If they do all of that, you're looking at Jair being a restructure of about 10 million, Rashawn Gary about 6, Elton Jenkins about 6. Again, unless they dabble with void years, that make it bigger. But still, those 3 guys would net them about $22 million in available cap space just from restructuring these contracts. So again, could extend more, but can't stress the credit card thing enough. Really, we're starting to get to the end of the list already, but there's only 3 more players that they can drastically do something cap-wise with. One of them, yeah, I got it right there, Devondre Campbell. Cap number of $14.2 million this year. I think we can all acknowledge realistically Campbell's lost a step. Like whether it's injuries, age, I don't really care. Maybe he's angry at coaching again. Who knows? But he hasn't been the same linebacker since his all pro season. He's now entering a new defensive scheme. He's entering his age 31 season. And I know, like, scheme could be different. Circumstances could be different this year. But also keep in mind, Quay Walker seemingly had some of his strongest games this year when Campbell was out, when Quay was the one wearing the communication helmet and not Campbell. Maybe the Packers want to explore that more. For sure, it doesn't help the argument of keeping Campbell around. So in terms of Campbell, I think a release is incredibly possible. While the out of his contract is significantly more friendly after next season, it's at least possible now. If they were to release him, it results in an opening of only $2.6 million, with $11.6 million dead left behind. But if they declare him as a post-June 1st release, then the numbers change pretty drastically. The dead cap then gets spread out over 2024 and 2025, with the bigger hit being added in 2025. Cutting him post June 1 would result in $3.6 million dead cap in 2024, $7.9 million dead cap in 2025, while opening $10.5 million in cap right now. And as appealing as that option is, the Packers do have true cap room coming again in 2025. Do they want to fill that up with a dead cap charge from a 30-something-year-old linebacker? So, seems like the move here with Campbell is a release one way or another. It's just how they want to do the bookkeeping. Another candidate of conversation is actually Preston Smith. As Campbell had a major falling off this year, Preston did not. In fact, he was my defensive MVP. He still turned in basically a 10-sack season, still was from the edge one of their best run edge setters. Like, the dude was still one of their best defensive players, no doubt about it. Even as the Packers have Lucas Van Ness coming up, they still have Rashawn Gary. I gotta believe Preston Smith is going to be kept around for at least one more year. So let's work from that assumption now. Frankly, I like his contract a lot better than I like some other contracts on the team, including Kenny Clark. So, hypothetically, if the Packers do have to release Preston Smith, it results in only $2.5 million savings with $14 million dead hit this year. Designated as post-June 1, like we were talking about with Campbell, and you're looking at $4 million dead cap this year, $9.8 in 2025, and an opening of $12.4. Because Preston Smith has 2 more active years in the contract, they also could play with another restructure. Another restructure on this contract would likely result in about $8 million opening up. So certainly options there for Preston Smith. In my opinion, it is still the most likely that he's going to be on this roster. And frankly, out of all the options here, he's one contract that I would just leave alone. Someone who I wouldn't leave alone, Aaron Jones, the heartbeat of the team. Again, a different circumstance than many of the others. Campbell aging, falling off. Preston aging and hanging on. Aaron Jones aging and arguably more important to this team than he's ever been. But he also does carry a cap number of about $17 million. It is possible Jones takes another pay cut like he did last year. Why not? He set the precedent for himself. It's possible that they attempt further restructures if that's the case. Depending on how they do it, they could gain about $8 million in cap space. But as with any restructure, again, credit card. Like Clark, an extension here could make a lot of sense, in which case you could take that $17 million number and, in theory, cut it in half. But then you are offering a contract extension to a running back who's getting into his early 30s. So, pulling up that top 10 again, what are the different avenues that the Packers could do to open up money? Just kind of a summary here. Let's say they restructure Jair, Jenkins, Gary. It opens up about $22 million in cap. Let's say they reduce box number by 10. They do some kind of void year restructure with him rather than cutting him. Okay. They make Campbell a post-June 1 cut, gives them $10 million. They extend Clark and Jones, giving them about $15 million total on the more conservative side. And they leave Preston Smith, his contract alone. So just so they could screw with it next year. All of a sudden, do that series of moves, because this top 10 is so heavy, you do that series of moves and you'd swing the Packers from about under $3 million in cap space to positive $55 million in cap space. Again, tinker with Preston Smith, release Bach instead of adding void years. And there's opportunity for even more money to be had. Heck, cut Royce Newman, get yourself $1 million. I wouldn't be upset about it. And really, all of that swing that's possible for the Packers is a little bit friendlier than it has been in past years, not just necessarily in the total valuation of the potential swing, but rather in how much would need to get pushed onto the future in order to do this compared to other things like the Aaron Rodgers contract and everything like that, which takes us to our final thoughts. Look, the Green Bay Packers, they're going to look to acquire impact players, in large part because of a new contention window that maybe arrived earlier than a lot of people have expected it to, which means they need money. They need money now, but they also need money in the future. And this is going to be a tight wire act. Why do they need money in the future? Well, because for one, you got to lock up a franchise quarterback. Beyond that, though, think of the extensions coming. All of these super young players that we're so excited about every day that we're talking about the future, they're going to take the league by storm. Well, they're going to get paid in the next couple of years. And the Packers have to right now walk a tightrope between we need money now, the contention window is starting, to, oh boy, if Christian Watson can figure out his hamstring and he actually becomes the wide receiver one that we all think he's capable of, oh boy, he's going to be expensive in 2 more years. And that is at the root of what Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball have to figure out this offseason. How much do they want to push into the future in order to create space now? One thing, just for a full context, and I know this episode is just vomiting information. I get it. But one thing, just for pure context here, is keep in mind that over the next couple of years, the cap does experience some rather exponential growth. Exact numbers, of course, yet to be determined. But with TV deals coming in place, different things being accomplished by the NFL, that cap's only going up. And there's some rumors out there that you can expect like a $350 million cap instead of the one that they're sitting at now within the next couple of years. An increase of $70, $100 million in cap space for everybody in the league is completely possible. So maybe the Packers are more willing now with that news than they've been, but still, it's going to be a tightrope for Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball. There are options. Just determines how much they want to put on that credit card. Thanks so much for joining me here at Lombardi Time Brews. I will be back on Monday offering another topic of the Packers, and of course, maybe even Monday. Draft season starts, and we're going to start taking a look at all of the prospects, analyzing whether they may be good fits for the Packers or not. Taking a look at pros, cons, etc. We got so much more to talk about as the offseason is getting underway. Thanks so much for joining me here. If you haven't, please hit that subscribe button. Let's get to over 1,500 subscribers. Thanks so much. It means the world to me. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. And as always, go Pack Go.